Welcome. Your ship will arrive momentarily. In the meantime, we ask that you secure any delicate cargo, such as children or immature individuals, in the loading bay. Loose items like fragile egos, endless mental chatter, political fantasy, and religious dogma are prohibited. As we prepare for departure, please be advised that the challenges this mission holds offer particularly significant risks to the mind, heart, and will of the explorer, and the odds of survival as you know them are extremely low. Your bravery in the face of this great adversity inspires us all.
I'm trying to save you and your family's life. I'm giving you a choice. Either put on these glasses or start eating that trash can.
We are not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Are you ready to free your mind from those silly-ass chains? Well, buckle up, friends, because you are watching the baddest show in the Milky Way. Take aim or take cover while we annihilate ignorance, deception, and slavery in all its forms. Welcome to the Holy Warship Podcast.
You're not getting away from the long arm of natural law.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Holy Warship Podcast. I noticed that there was a lot of people out there watching the test stream, which was Terror Storm, and that's a good documentary with Alex Jones. And yeah, if anyone sticks around, we're going to put that back on at the end of the show, so that way, everyone can watch it. And it looks like there's a lot of people out there watching that. So without further ado, welcome to the Holy Warship Podcast. My name is Aaron Butler, and today we have a presentation called Ending Slavery for Dummies. And this is a presentation that I did last week, and so I'm going to do it again this week because it's so important to get this information out here and to share this with other people. Looks like that slide's having a hard time. There we go. Ending Slavery for Dummies. We're going to get into what is slavery? Where does slavery come from? Are you a slave? And how to unslave yourself. So if you end up being a slave, which we will find out in this presentation, then you can figure out how to get out of this slavehood, or what some people call unslaving yourself. So, as usual, I like to thank the One Great Work Network. You can find my presentation, Everything You Should Already Know, over on the One Great Work Network. And you can go there and see just the amazing content that people have. You go to the Creators tab, and all of these people are doing their best to educate others about slavery, how to get out of the slavery system, how to stop being a slave, how to, get through to the minds of the people who are slaves or enslaving you or others. So these people understand the true dynamic of freedom, and you cannot go wrong if you go to check out the One Great Work Network. I always love to give that a shout out at the beginning of the episode because it is so crucial for you to understand what slavery is. And these people break it down in a way that I don't. So right here, you're getting the Holy Warship flavor, the Aaron Butler flavor. But over on the One Great Work Network, you can get whatever flavor you want, it seems like. So, as I already mentioned, go check out Everything You Should Already Know. It's an awesome presentation by myself. I cover everything from the Big Bang all the way into current modern events. So Everything You Should Already Know is quite literally what I titled it. A lot of people don't like being told what they should know, but I made this just to catch everyone up. There's some priceless information there. We discuss evolution, psychology, the tribes, the occult, everything. It's all packed into a couple hours, so it's worth checking out. A warning that I give on every episode is that you make your own decisions, and this show is for mature audiences only. I want to have people tuning in who are mature, who can look at information without denying it or rejecting it automatically, because this show is going to get at the root of slavery. It's going to get at the root of humanity's issues. It's going to go straight for the jugular of deceit and deception. So you have to be mature, and for stable audiences. If you're unstable, if you have a hard time even living and coping with reality, then this can either go one of two ways. You can either find some amazing information and solutions which help you stabilize and get your feet, or this can actually be pretty destabilizing to people who, are having a hard time in general, just surviving and living. But my hope is that this information helps you get a foundation and get principles underneath you. So that way you have your bearings, you have your compass, you can know where to go in this world. A warning also is that I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. I'm not presenting this information to be perfect or to make the claim that I, am so amazing because I have this information. Rather, I'm just here humbly to try to educate others and to do my best to divulge the information that has been bestowed upon me in this life. So we are late. This is another warning that I give. Humanity is late, and this is where I get my urgency. This is why we're on the Warship, is because we need to have some pep in our step, and we need to get moving on, the path towards freedom. And so this is where I get my, aggressive delivery methods. I have just a couple more disclaimers, then we're going to get into the amazing presentation today. I don't want to be believed. Do your own research. I'm not here saying that everyone should believe me. That's not the purpose of this. We all have to take in information as much as possible. And this show, The Warship, we don't want believers. Believers is why we're in this situation. Believers is why we have so many issues with this world, is because there are too many people just believing what they see. And you make your own decisions. Everyone here on this life, I can't make this. We're going to learn a lot about making decisions in this episode. So making decisions is very important, and I can't do that for you. And I'm not responsible for what you do with the information on this podcast. Only you can be responsible for that. I stand against violence. That is one thing that I have to make sure. There's a couple things. All of these things are essential. I have to explain all of these because the information we're going to get into is earth-shattering. It's quite revolutionary, and it needs to be shared with as many people as possible. But what you do is on you, and I will always stand against violence. I never will promote violence. Self-defense and the use of force are different than violence. So we're going to get into a little bit of that today. The final disclaimer is that truth is not terrorism. And I'm putting this out there. I know some people think, well, of course it's not. Well, there are people around us who find the truth to be terrorism. And we'll get into that a little more, but this is something we have to understand. I stand against violence. The truth is not terrorism. The truth is an act of freedom and love. And so, without further ado, let's get into part 1 of Ending Slavery for Dummies. What is slavery? This is the big question. Simply put, slavery is the belief in the legitimacy of one being's ability to possess rightful ownership and authority over another being. So this is a very simple breakdown of what slavery is. It's when you claim ownership over someone else's being or their property, their labor, which they've rightfully acquired, and we'll get into rights. So, as we said, one human being can never think, understand, or act for another human being. Nobody can act for another human being. I can't think for anyone. I can't understand for anyone. And I sure as heck cannot live for anyone. we all have responsibility over our own autonomy, over our own behavior, our own thoughts, our own actions. And so this means that authority, which is the belief that I can create or dictate laws for another person, is, it's illegitimate. So there's the slavery is based off of the belief of authority, that other people get to actually control and tell other people's what to do. Authority is a religious term, which comes from that the being that creates laws, or the thing that writes laws into being. That is like authorship. Like if you were to write a book, this is what other people this is what authority essentially is that I get to create law, something that other people are bound by. So authority excuses slavery, and the belief in authority assumes that some people can create laws for other people, and that some people have the right to enforce these laws while others are obligated to obey. And the idea of legitimate authority is a contradiction to how reality operates and a violation of natural law rights. This is so crucial to understand. And when humanity starts using the filter of authority and the filter of slavery versus freedom, then a great block in our vision and in our deceptions will be stripped from us, because we're not bound by the belief that other people actually can possess rightful ownership or authority over others. So what are natural law rights? And what is this? We're starting to get into what rights are, right? And what beings have the ability to do. And so since all beings can only own themselves and the fruits of their own labor, any claim of ownership by one party or being over the body and private property of a separate party is false. It's based on a false system, a false belief system that is contradictory to reality. So the claim of ownership itself, or the belief that anyone can make a claim to someone else's life and the way that they live their life, it's actually in a violation of natural law, and it's in opposition to reality, because you cannot live for someone else and you cannot tell them what their laws are. Laws are natural and innate to reality. So Angelina Grimke, an abolitionist: man cannot rightfully hold his fellow man as property. The claim to him as property is an annihilation of his rights to himself. Can it get any more simpler than that? So a natural right is the innate freedom to act in any way, so long as it does not initiate the violation of the rights of another individual, theft or harm. So rights end where theft begins, where harm begins. This is very simple. And if you can't speak rights or laws simply, then we probably don't know them as well as we think. So this is an understanding that we all have the innate freedom to act in any way, as long as you're not stealing the property, the rightful property of another individual, or making claim on their body or their their property. Every human has the inherent right to voluntary interaction, as long as they're not performing any violent behaviors or violations. So these are the true sins of reality. These are the true natural aggressions, and these are unnatural claims of ownership. And they are types of lies that we tell ourselves. Murder is the claim that you have the right to take someone else's life that does not belong to you. Willful deception, many people don't believe that deception or lying is an actual crime or sin against reality or natural law, because the effects of lying aren't visible right away. However, all of these other behaviors, trespass is the deception, the lie that we have the right to invade someone else's domicile. Coercion is the belief or the lie that we have the right to threaten other people and get them to do what we like. Theft is the lie and the wrong belief that we have the right and rightful claim to other people's property. So all of these other violent behaviors or violations of natural law are a form of deception. And deception is one of the most invisible forms of wrongdoing. And it's the most viral that takes place on our planet. So since all these behaviors aren't rights and we can't be justified in performing any of these, it means that there's no circumstance which these are tolerable. We do, like I said, we have the right to self-defense. We have the right, but self-defense, if you take the life of someone who is trying to take your life and aggressing on you first, that's different. There's a difference between murder and killing, is a distinction that even biblically is made, is that killing and murder are two separate things. Self-defense, self-defense for someone that is assaulting you is different than just being the aggressor and initiating the harm on other people. So let's get into part 2. Where does slavery come from? A big question, because we all see slavery, but we're trying to get here on the Warship, we need to get at the source and the causal principles, the causal factors of why humanity is enslaved. So Kanye West, when you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. You were there for 400 years and it's all of y'all. It's like we're mentally imprisoned. So this is crucial. And Kanye West is pointing out that humanity, in order to be enslaved for so long with the amount of people that they had, he said it seems like we're mentally imprisoned. This gets at the heart of what slavery is. Like we talked about the deception as being the number one emanation of all of the other crimes and all of the other sins or violations or transgressions against natural law. So, and he makes it a little more clear in this next quote. To make myself clear, of course I know that slaves did not get shackled and put on a boat by free will. My point is for us to have stayed in that position, even though the numbers were on our side, means that we were mentally enslaved. I mean, that's a pretty good way to wrap up what slavery is, right? It all comes down to the mind, and it comes down to the belief that we can possess ownership, we can write laws for other people. So, the visible forms of slavery, like assault, theft, deception, rape, trespass, they're all outward expressions of a deeper mental cause that, it's a reflection. What we live in this world, what we're going through, is a reflection of the total consciousness of humanity and the inner imprisonment of our mind. So slavery begins as a delusion in a diseased psyche. Slavery can only exist in someone's mind as legitimate if their mind is already degraded and their health and mental health is already degraded enough to accept this as a legitimate, existence. So slavery begins as the false belief that some are rulers and others are subjects, morally obligated to be ruled. So this illusion rests upon the idea that any human is truly separate from another and possesses more or less rights than another. So, because we all have different skin and different voices and different ways of living our life, this insidious trick of slavery is the separation of the human from one another. And you can only actually have a slave or believe in slavery if you believe that you and your soul is different than someone else and their soul, when there actually is no distinction other than the physical outward appearances. And at the core foundation of what human life is that we're all identical in our nature, in our soul, from source. Now, I know that's a heavy thing to believe, but the illusion of separateness between human beings is just that. It's an illusion. And so, based on this illusion that we see we're separate, that is when people make the claim, I have more rights than you, you're less, I'm more, I'm less, you're more. And so the illusion that, some people are rulers and some are slaves, it gets down to the belief that we are separate. And this is a wrong belief, because humans are all humans. And I think most people, if you're being honest, you understand what I'm saying. So, the dialectic, if someone is sick, if someone's mind is diseased and they're presented with this opportunity, we live in a world where some people are rulers and some people are slaves. Well, we make a choice then. This is the dialectic that's posed to everyone, is that I can either identify with the slave or identify with the master. And the reason this is a dialectic is because you're a slave no matter what you choose. And if you identify with the master, you're still identifying with the belief in slavery. You're still recognizing that the belief in the rightful claim of ownership of someone else's being and life and property is legitimate. And so no matter which one, David Icke calls this the opposame, where it's the illusion of being an opposite. These are the illusion of being separate, when actually the master will submit just like a slave if he is positioned against someone who he sees as superior. And so the slave also has master tendencies, and the slave will do its best to maintain domination over other slaves, which it would seem as, less, or, any opportunity to subjugate another individual that it can, that it perceives, it will take that opportunity. So the master and slave are the same thing. They are the same thing, and they are both slaves. Whoops, went a little fast there. And here is the slave-master cycle, and this is how slavery continues in our world, and it's how we've gotten to this point. So the more individuals who believe that some people have more or less rights than others, the more enslaved those people will become, because the belief is rampant. The belief keeps going. And now, the more enslaved people become, the more that their mental and moral health degrades. So their mental health, we live in a world where mental health is plummeting. And most people can't identify what mental health is because of how many people are mentally unhealthy. The people who are teaching about mental health are mentally unhealthy. And, we live in a world, no matter what government you live under, where you are, 99.9% of people, and maybe it's just 99%, maybe there's a 1% who understand this, but the majority isn't on the 1% side. And so as humanity gets more enslaved, our behaviors get worse and our mental health gets worse. And the more that mental and moral health degrade, the more people will believe that some people possess more or less rights than others. So what do we know? After, the more people who believe in this, the more individuals, become enslaved. So this is a cycle of slavery. This is why it's a spiraling pit of enslavement, is because our mental and moral health are degrading, which perpetuates the belief, essentially in a roundabout way. If I'm going to be just up front, the dumber we get, the more enslaved we get. And the more enslaved we get, the dumber we get. That's a simpler way to say it. So since we're talking about the mind, we're talking about slavery as the source from our mind, is that our minds are enslaved. So we can't go on without talking about mind control, right? So mind control is thought manipulation of perceptions, beliefs, it overrides the cognitive autonomy. And this starts from a very young age. Many people think that mind control started in the 50s or 60s or whatever MK Ultra started. But mind control, if you truly sit and think about it, it comes from the beginning of time. The second humans could lie to one another, that's when mind control began. When mind control, when humans could first deceive one another, that is when mind control began. So if you think about this from the master's perspective, is that there's a group of people who have been mastering mind control since the beginning of recorded history. And before that, if you can, infer, if you can actually use your thinking skills and infer to prehistory. So mind control and slavery begins with getting people to accept slavery and getting people to stop fighting against slavery. Mind control is the first cause of slavery, and all violence and coercion are but tools to break the free will of the slave and get them to ultimately submit mentally. So we see in our world how much violence exists, but it's a domino, and we talked about the master-slave cycle. So the more, slavery or the violence is but a tool, and it's the effect as well. So it's perpetual. It continues, and it's hard to separate the one from the other. So all of the trauma and stress for thousands of years, let alone one person's life, and imagine the DNA deconstruction that has taken place over the past how many thousands of years. Because we all, if you're studying, if you're up to date on genetics, if you're up to date on science, then we know that trauma echoes through our DNA, and it echoes through our thoughts. It echoes internally within our bodies. And so after generations and generations of mind control, the consciousness is degraded more and more and more. And eventually humanity, or the consciousness, comes into a holding pattern where it's nothing but fight or flight. It's nothing but eating and sex and going to the bathroom. All of our base reptilian and animal instincts are coming out more and more and more, because we have been traumatized for thousands of years with this mind control and this slavery that is existing. And we will get more into, are we slaves? If it's not very clear yet, it's going to be a little more clear here soon. So mankind becomes enslaved when it is ignorant to, afraid of, and uncaring of the hidden occult mind control imposed by its enslaver. So hidden is another word for the occult. Occult is another word for hidden. So mind control And we talked about deception and how willful deception is the most invisible form of mind control or slavery. And this is because that the violence we see is only a tool or the effect of the mind control. And the true reason that we are enslaved is because we're not paying attention to the mental and spiritual cues of slavery imposed by, the enslaver of the world. So when mankind is ignorant, so to speak, we become enslaved. So to enslave men successfully and safely, it is necessary to have their minds occupied with thoughts and aspirations short of the liberty of which they are deprived. So that's mind control right there. You keep people occupied on anything but slavery, anything but mind control, going deeper into what mind control is. Occupy them on anything. Okay, so let's see if we have any comments. I'm not really sure to see. If anyone has any comments or questions, let's just do this. Let's get into our comments and questions after the end of the show. We're making good progress here. So anyone who has any comments, please leave them on Twitter, Kick, Twitch, or Rumble. We're live on all of those platforms right now. And I'm going to say again, go check out the One Great Work Network. There is a live stream player that's 24/7. It's really amazing. And all of these amazing people on the One Great Work Network, they're doing their best to educate about slavery and bring it to an end. And the only way that humans can do this is through education and helping each other and enforcing our rights and protecting our rights. And that's a big thing. We will get into that a little more. But let's get back to the presentation. Are you a slave? So there's some questions we have to ask. What is a slave? What even is a slave? So a slave is one who believes or fails to question entirely the idea that others have legitimate and rightful claim of ownership or authority over their life, body, or the fruits of their labor. So the slave is very similar to, the master, is they believe in slavery, or they never question their belief in slavery. They never question if someone is making claim over their body. The slave will dismiss at the thought of someone else owning them or the rights of their labor. And so that's the true sign of a slave. A slave is any being who through coercion, conditioned belief, has ignored their right and responsibility to self-ownership, and they've allowed their thoughts, body, or labor to be claimed by another in violation of natural law rights. So if a slave may dismiss his own responsibility or dismiss his own rights, but this is still a violation. The slave is still violating the natural laws. The slave is still violating reality. The slave is actually perpetuating wrongdoing. And that's hard to admit. And most people want to say, we're all slaves. We exist in the system. But that is actually not an excuse, and it's not justified, because when you have rights, when you're a sovereign being, and this is just a matter of fact, these aren't religious, these aren't even spiritual claims, is that human beings can only act one for himself. And we can act, in service to other beings, but ultimately, when it comes down to right behavior, it's the behaviors that you choose to do that you're responsible for. and your responsibilities are where you get your actions and, where your rights come from. The responsibility to uphold, freedom, uphold yourself as a sovereign. If you give up your sovereignty, then you can't give up your sovereignty. It's a deception that we can even give up our sovereignty, because that's impossible to even do. You can believe that you've given up your sovereignty, but it doesn't make it happen in reality. Okay, so are you a slave? A definitive sign of slavery is a class of people who have more rights than others. Are there actions that if you took would be punishable, but if someone else took would be justifiable or even encouraged? I think most of us can look around and say that, there's a group of people who have more or less rights than I do. And we have justifications for those, but when you understand what rights are, then they can't be taken away. Rights cannot be taken away. But we live in a world where the belief is perpetuated. The mind control is perpetuated. So, do you have a government? Government is the tool of the slaver. It's an institution to serve as a proxy for God, true authority. This is why we see those in government, or maybe even those who have gone through, however many years in the school systems, we see these as authorities. And we see, the government as authority figures. But like we said before, authority is a religious term for that which brings laws into being. And authority does not, humans don't get to create natural laws. The true laws of the world are nature's laws. And government, in the claim that it can have this authority or write laws down, it's only a belief. It's not legitimate in nature. It's not legitimate in reality. So here's an example. This is kind of a very clear example, as clear as I can make it. So humanity says, or a government says, we get to vote on laws, which means that they're not constant. It means that they get to change. If you cross a different line, if you go to a different point in time, the laws are different. And so they're recognizing that humanity gets to say, this is a right and this is a wrong. Now then they get to enforce a right or a wrong at any point in time. So then you get to be put in jail, and then you get to be fined or stolen from, or however it works. That is the belief that laws are constant and that the laws don't change. It means that these laws are punishable because there's nothing that changes them. So it's a bit schizophrenic, if that makes sense. It's a bit they want the best of both worlds. And at the end of the day, what the claim is that government is God. That's the claim, is that they get to choose whenever and enforce whatever laws. So the justification, the belief in the justification of government, or that it is legitimate, is against nature. It's against reality. It's against laws. So I think I've belabored that, but government has been the excused form of slavery for thousands of years. And here we are, the word govern meant, gubernare, which means to steer, direct, control, or ment comes from Latin mens mentis, which is the mind, thoughts. Government literally means mind control. And you can try to justify government however you want. You can't get around it. You can't get around the etymological roots of the word. Sure, you could say the words mean whatever, and we could live in La La Land and pretend that there's no reason and there's no rhyme for anything. But when you understand mind control, you understand why words are so important, and you understand why words are thrown around every day that we have no idea what they mean. Most of humanity doesn't even understand what the word slavery is. They think of slavery as, the chains and whips and, lashings and, white versus black oppression, etc. But when you study what mind control is, or even what government is for that matter, you realize that the ultimate form, all forms of slavery are from the same root and from the same source, which is the mind. It's a false belief in reality, a delusion. So the master class, which is called government, they abuse psychological archetypes, occult symbolism, NLP, doublespeak, language. The master class abuses language. This is why you get, people like Jordan Maxwell, who belabored the emphasis of words and legalese and doublespeak and understanding the words. This is why, people like Mark Passio, he breaks down into detail definitions of words, is because this is the number one way that humans can be mind controlled, is through word associations. So this is, if we just go back to government. Excuse me for 1 second. So when I say government and you hear government, I'm saying and you're hearing two different things. I say the word government, it comes out of my lips, and it goes through this microphone and through your speaker. But when it comes through your ears and into your brain has to reassociate those sounds with its own picture of government. Which means my picture inside my head of government is way different, and I know it is. It's way different than what your definition is and how you define and put your own mental image to the word government. That is mind control. That is because the slavers have a different picture in their head when they speak. When they use language, they're using different symbols. It's when you start to see it, it becomes everywhere. It becomes everywhere, and you see who are using this information, who is using it, and who is not. And we live in a world where the master class has mastered these tools, and they use whatever means necessary. They use all of it. If they can't convince you to believe something, they will beat it into you. Or they'll extort it out of you. So you have to understand that slavery is a declaration of war. It means there's no rules. Slavery, the belief in human domination over one another and the claim of ownership, is an act of war. I've yet to finish my presentation titled, I haven't really settled on a name yet, but it's going to be all about warfare, so people can get the physical and psychological and spiritual understandings of what warfare is. This is so crucial. So let's continue. And for anyone who was watching, we're going to continue Terror Storm, which was the Alex Jones documentary, all about false flags, terrorism, the way that the masters of the world use terrorism to subdue the people. And so that's going to be playing when we're all done here. Please go to, let's say, I don't know, comment on any of the platforms, Rumble, Kick, Twitch, and Twitter or X. Go leave a comment, ask a question, tell me what you think about this information, or just give a thumbs up. Let me know that there's someone out there, and please share this presentation, share some of my work with those who you think, aren't gonna crucify you, for lack of a better word, for listening to a guy like me. And so yeah, share my work. Go check out everything you should already know. It's an amazing presentation. You can find it on Odyssey, YouTube. I should upload it to Twitter or X. So let's get into it. So the slavers also use religious rituals and ceremonies to impersonate divinity and give their rule an ostensibly moral facade and divine facade. So that's what, when you hold your hand over your heart and you pledge allegiance to a flag, what you're saying is that that's what you live for. You live for that flag. You live for that symbol. So they abuse these symbols and rituals, and they shove them in your face, so that way you associate the government and the slave system with something being upright and moral and good. So slaves do not have the right to travel or build or barter or earn freely. And even just regular, simple moral activities, like if I wanted to go over to, into my city and make a little table in the park and put up a sign. There are most counties these days say that I need to go to them and ask permission to sit and just put a bench up or put a table up and a sign. This is a symbol of slavery. If you need permission to talk, to speak, to educate, then you are a slave. This is how it works. It's as simple as that. There's no need to complicate it, right? So you need licenses and permits. That's why they're called permits. It's permission. And licenses are degrees. And degrees are, esoteric symbols from secret societies. But most people, when they hear degree, they think, oh, I got a degree from Stanford or, whatever. But the true degrees are methods of initiation or indoctrination, if you're speaking of the slave system. So the masters, their laws / commands, because they're actually commands, and they should be falling on educated ears. But these commands, if they're written down in a ritual, like when the president or a politician has a signing ceremony and they save the pen and they do this thing and everyone claps, that is a ritual. And those commands are confused with laws. And all of these laws vary from one time and place to another. So they vary from one time and place to another. This means that the human who is subjected to whichever slave or government you are under, then you're psychologically fragmented, and you're constantly paranoid of being extorted or caged, or even beaten or murdered for doing normal upright behavior. Like if you're speeding and you don't pull over, well, guess what? Let's say you're just speeding. Let's say you're going 10 over, and then these if you're even speeding going 5 over, you're paranoid about getting pulled over. You're going 5 miles over the speed limit. You passed a car, whatever it is. You're paranoid in that whole situation. Most people. Some people aren't. Some people are just, they understand that, they have the right to be doing what they're doing. But if you cross a county line or you cross a state line, let's say, then now you're paranoid because whatever it is, you're bringing fruit, some type of invasive species or fruit into another state, then you're paranoid and you can't live a normal life because you're constantly under duress. This is how they keep the slaves in a paranoid and fight or flight mode, is because everything is changing all the time. There's no constant with laws. They get to change it at will. If you have a firearm, that you bought legally 1 month, the next month it's illegal and you can go to prison. And most Americans are living that way. Most Americans, I don't know anyone who just says, "Oh wow, I have my magazine has an extra round in it, so I better go turn it in," or But most people are living in a state of paranoia, constant fear, and duress for a reason. It's to keep people in a fight or flight, in being paranoid, so that way they actually will act more erratic or they'll fall in line. And then you get to see, who's on what side. Anyway, let's keep going. We're going to keep moving through this. So are you a slave? Is there a government or a class of people who use the excuse of authority to justify the granting or theft of rights? So is there people who say, I have the authority, excuse me, the authority vested in you, in the people, which it's an impossibility if you read Lysander Spooner's book. I think it's, No Treason. It might be called No Treason. I'd have to brush it up. But essentially, it's an impossibility for the people to all give consent to be ruled. It's impossible. It's against nature. It's against law. It's scientific. It's spiritual before it's scientific, but it's scientific in absence of the spiritual. It's wrong as true or false. Right and wrong is correlated to true or false. Wrong is wrong. Incorrect. Against law, against reality. So is there a class of people or people around you who believe that it's morally responsible for you to do as these masters command, regardless of morality? So like turning people in, turning in your neighbors for whatever, whatever it is, their grass is too long, so you're going to call the cops on them. That's what people do. People do that, and that's what slaves do. And so slaves will tattle and tell the master because they feel that it bolsters their case with the slave. We live in a world like this, so we're going to keep asking the question, are you a slave? And, is there a class of people that have rights to perform actions that you don't have the right to perform? So, what's the answer? If your natural rights are treated as privileges that can be granted or taken away by a government or a mob, the government is backed by the mob. And if these people who say, yes, the government, which means mind control, which means slavery, the mob is actually what backs up the government. It's a type of people who believe that rights can be given or taken away based on the time or place or feeling, however anyone feels. So if your rights are granted or taken away, then you're a slave. In fact, in scientific fact, it's not a moral judgment. It's not a spiritual judgment. Just in fact. In fact, a slave if your rights are taken away on the whim of legislative powers from a so-called government. Okay. So now that we've answered the questions, what is slavery? Where does slavery come from? Are you a slave? Let's find out a little bit of good news for anyone who's been hanging out. If you've been hanging out and you're still kicking it, That's so awesome. And please comment, leave a question, you know, on one of the channels, wherever you're watching it. Just leave a comment, thumbs up, ask a question. You know, we're going to start getting guests on. So maybe next week I'm going to get all the guest stuff set up. And if you're out there, you want to hang out or talk, let me know, leave a comment. Maybe we'll just we'll get you on right now and we can have a conversation. So the good news is that now that anyone has stuck around and listened to this presentation, you finally have the opportunity to free yourself and understand and share this truth to others. The truth is good news, and it might tear away some uncomfortable things. That the truth can always, and usually does always, hurt in the beginning. But it's, what does they say? It's better to tell, what is it? Slap someone with the truth than kiss them with a lie, right? It's better to tell the truth in the beginning and to get it out of the way. And where you've learned, or anyone who's been paying attention to the show and watched the past episodes, is that the good thing is that we got us into this mess. Slavery begins with the mind and slavery ends with the mind. And it ends in the mind, right? So that's good news, because we all have minds for the most part. You know, if you're around and you're watching my show and you've made it this far, chances are you have a mind, and that is where slavery has begun from the beginning of time, and that is where slavery will end. So the moment we recognize that freedom means owning yourself is the moment we can say no to slavery. So now that you've been passed the torch, anyone who has been watching, I've given you the torch of truth, and you have practically been initiated into a truth that is so deep that every slave master has been trying to keep it from the slave forever. And we'll get into that. But we have to start saying no to slavery. We have to educate ourselves. So let's get into part 5, how to unslave yourself. So we have to know our rights. We have to study the natural laws, which is where our rights come from. Understand right versus wrong behavior and begin to live righteously, raise awareness of this information to others. We have to study natural law. Go to the One Great Work Network. I think there might be a search bar. You might be able to search for natural law. The natural liberty of man is to be free from any superior power on earth, and not to be under the will or legislative authority of man, but only to have the law of nature for his rule. Samuel Adams. So we have to know ourselves, right? We have to acknowledge who we are, acknowledge our mistakes, acknowledge it doesn't just come with saying, oh, yep, the world's enslaved. Now I'm just going to act like I knew that the whole time. I'm not going to look in the mirror and see how I've perpetuated slavery, how my thinking has been incorrect, right? So we have to recognize our mistake and say, I was wrong, and I need to start acknowledging my responsibility and how I've ignored and contributed to our enslavement. That's crucial step 1. We have to know ourselves, know that we're wrong, say I was wrong. So heed these words, you who wish to probe the depths of nature. If you do not find within yourself that which you seek, neither will you find it outside. So since slavery begins in the mind, you can look within yourself and find how you have contributed to slavery. If you ignore the wonders of your own house, how do you expect to find other wonders? So if you ignore yourself and ignore all of the things about yourself, not just the bad, but you notice the times you've stuck up for truth, you have to notice those things too. I know there's shadow work shadow work is destructive because it's stripping away and identifying and shining light on our shadow. But what most people forget to do is to build themselves back up and pay attention to the good things about themselves. Pay attention to the times they did do right. Pay attention to the times they stuck up for truth. And, sometimes we focus so much on the bad things that we don't even look at the good things about ourselves. And, that's a little harder to do because we think we're so bad that we brush off anything good that we've done, which that's unhealthy as well. In you is hidden the treasure of treasures. Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods. So we always have to pay attention and know ourselves, know our rights and know ourselves, which means know your rights and know your wrongs. You have to balance those two. You have to balance the external, the source of our rights, understanding that knowledge of natural law, and then understand ourselves. Understand the knowledge of the psyche, understand the knowledge of the mind, the knowledge of how to control our own minds. So say no to slavery. The beginning, now that we've recognized slavery, anyone who's been hanging out with me and watching the show, you have to start disavowing the beliefs that legitimize human authority and perpetuate slavery. Be willing to sacrifice time, effort, and even your life to defend your natural rights. It's very uncomfortable that this is the truth. It's very uncomfortable that this is the truth. But we have to say no, disavow these beliefs. Resolve to serve no more, and you are at once freed. I do not ask that you place hands upon the tyrant to topple him, only that you support him no longer. Then you will behold him like a great colossus whose pedestal has been pulled away, fall of his own weight, and break in pieces. So, with disavow the beliefs of slavery that says, I get to own other people, we get to own each other. And withdraw your consent. Withdraw your consent to be mind controlled. Withdraw your consent to be dominated. Withdraw your consent to be enslaved. So study and apply occulted, hidden knowledge. So the occult is the information that the slave masters and the dominators of the world don't want you to look at. And they've made everyone afraid of looking into. They've made everyone afraid to understand. They've made everyone believe that the occult is somehow a boogeyman that comes out of a book, or it comes out of occult information. The second you start to understand the occult or hidden information, then a demon will fly into your eye sockets and your mouth and your nostrils, and you're going to be possessed by a demon. But let's just say this. Demons come in the forms of thoughts. And if you're not principled, then demons can possess you, and you can get possessed by a type of thought or thought behavior or thought pattern. That's what demons are. They're voices in our head, or words that pop up in our head. They're thoughts that pop up in our head. That's what demons are. And nobody understands we have a slight inclination. There's some people in the spiritual community who understands what demons are. And then there's people in the Christian community. For the most part, some of them don't think this way, but most of them believe that demons are a spirit that is outside of your body, and it can inhabit your refrigerator and throw the refrigerator door open, and it can, move crosses upside down on the walls, and that's not what demons are. And that's a Hollywood version of what demons are. The occult and hidden knowledge is the understanding of how the universe works and how our minds work. Those are the two pieces of information. Know your rights, know your wrongs. Study natural law, know natural law, where morality comes from, where we can visibly see how morality manifests. Natural law, as slavery increases, freedom decreases. As morality increases, slavery increases. As morality decreases, slavery increases. So the knowledge of the occult is where everyone should be turning to. Everyone should know how their mind works. This is the understanding of the psychological components of our lives. So since all the great laws of nature are in fact working in the invisible world far more than in the visible, occultism involves the acceptance of a much wider view of nature than that which is ordinarily taken. So because the laws of nature work in the invisible realm, it's like something to say the force of life that makes a tree grow is not necessarily visible if you take a picture of a tree. If you isolate a tree and you see the tree, it's easy to take it out of context and understand the laws of nature that are behind it, like entropy or life or death. A tree will be growing on stages, but behind the tree is a force of nature that causes it to grow, which if you just look at a tree, we can see trees moving and all that in the wind. But for better or worse, if you take a picture of the tree, isolate the tree from that, that's what modern science is. The modern science is a material study of material and measurement of material, of number and mass and etc. It's not true science where you're looking at the forces of nature, understanding the forces of entropy or the force of evolution. So science has abandoned this, and the occultist studies nature and studies the invisible forces, which there are psychic forces in nature. Our minds have laws which they operate by. It's like just simply saying, if you lie too much, your psychology will change. Your psychology will deteriorate. Your ability to identify truth deteriorates because you aren't operating according to the laws of the mind. The occultist then is a man who studies all of the laws of nature that he can reach or of which he can hear. And as a result of his study, he identifies himself with these laws and devotes his life to the service of evolution. So there are people who study the occult so that way they can dominate others. I don't even think that those people are true occultists. I think those people are, you could say in a regard they're occultists. They're dark occultists is the way to say it. Light occultism is using your understanding and your knowledge of occultism to help people. It's de-occultism. You're bringing things out of the hidden into the light. You're sharing things with others. So you're devoting yourself to evolution, to evolve, to grow. So understand how to manifest freedom. And simply, freedom is the result of beings choosing the right thoughts, the right principles, and the right beliefs to feel and act upon. There are right thoughts, there are right principles, there are right beliefs. What you're doing is you're choosing the truth to think of and identify with and to believe and act upon. But the truth doesn't require belief. The truth is what is. So the only manifestation that truly matters is freedom. So when you take into account, if you're trying to manifest a good life for yourself, if you're trying to manifest good things, manifest more opportunities, you should be focused on how to manifest these for others and yourself simultaneously. If your focus is on for you to manifest something, and rather than manifesting the end result being freedom for life itself, opening a door for life itself to flourish, opening a door for the people around you and yourself to all come up, that's true manifestation, and it's the only manifestation that humanity should be focused on. We shouldn't be focused on manifesting the next $1 million idea. We shouldn't be focused on manifesting, the next Bugatti for ourselves, or a Bugatti for your mom or dad. That might be a little better than, just for yourself. But ultimately, the end result of our manifestations should be, I want more freedom for the people around me and myself. I want more freedom for myself and the people around me. If I create more freedom for myself and nothing has changed around me, you haven't created more freedom for yourself. Period. So peace, which one could call freedom, but true freedom, peace is intertangled with war. When you're studying true freedom opens possibilities. But as long as people are educated and behaving and thinking and believing morally, then freedom will produce more peace than it does war. When people become more controlled and more dominated and more mind controlled and a slave, less peace is possible. So peace can only come as a consequence of universal enlightenment. Educating ourselves of natural law, morality, consciousness, psychology, and all things the occult. When humanity, as the majority, starts studying these things, so living a principled life means that you understand and you believe and you act and you live as if each person is born inherently free with self-ownership. This means you don't tell other people what to do in the sense, or if it was put in a roundabout way, and I'm paraphrasing the book Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. If you wouldn't go and rob someone and take their furniture from their house or take their car out of their driveway, why would you vote or have someone else to go do that for you? It's still just as immoral to vote for harm to be done than it is to go do it yourself, because you're not justifying the ownership of other people. You're not justifying slavery. So initiating harm against another's body, rights, or property is inherently wrong and immoral. This is a principle. This is a simple explanation of morality and how initiating harm or theft of another's rights or property or body is inherently wrong and immoral. That's a principle. Defensive force in the protection of natural rights is right, true, and moral. So no matter what anyone believes, no matter what, even if everyone around you believes that you're wrong for defending yourself, at the end of the day, you are correct and true and moral for defending yourself. And the beautiful part about it is that I've done a podcast on death. It is The Art of Dying, which explains that we are judged when we die, and most occultists and most studied occultists, or those who have experienced a near-death experience, or maybe even an out-of-body experience accompanied with that they recognize that you're judged by the God within you. You're not judged by an angry man in the sky. You're judged by what you knew to be right or wrong, by the God consciousness, the God conscience inside you. This doesn't mean, oh, if I believe it. It doesn't mean, oh, I convinced myself, my ego. We're not judged by the ego when we die. We're judged by the God within. We're judged by the being where, I'll give an example. In according with defensive force and the protection of natural rights. If someone who's having a mental breakdown and they're otherwise a friend, let's say, they're otherwise even normal, you could say, and you know they're going through something, or they're super drunk, whatever, they're super drunk and they're having a mental health crisis, and they're drooling all over themselves, and you try to take the bottle away from them or take their car keys away from them, and they say, F you, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get you for this. I'll never forgive you. I'm going to kill you, right? And you're in your total normal physical state. And you know deep down that they're just saying this because they're upset. They're saying this because they're having a mental health issue. And let's say this person is just, belligerent. And let's say, would you believe, would you know in your heart that it would be wrong to shoot them and kill them because they said, oh, I'm going to kill you. They made a threat. Outwardly, other people, well, most people with a sane mind and with any moral integrity, they would say, no, you don't have the right to kill someone. And at the end of the day, when you go to bed at night, you're going to know that you crossed the line by killing them. You're going to have an understanding that you weren't acting in self-defense. You were acting with anger or frustration, whatever issues you have. Okay? So defensive force, when we talk about this, you have to be willing. What I'm talking about is being able to sleep at night, knowing that you were acting in self-defense. And there's a hairy line. There can be a hairy line, because if it's a stranger and they're saying something like this, you may not know, and you might say, I'm out of my wheelhouse, but most people, I've been in fights in school, and I've acted out of line when I was younger, and never, for most of my adult life, I've never initiated a fight, unless it was self-defense. But I can go to sleep at night. I can truly sleep at night because I've recognized my rights now, and I recognize my wrongs. And I can truly go to bed. I don't go to bed thinking that, I'm going to be in trouble or get caught up. And a lot of people, because they don't know their rights, they don't know defensive force. They constantly are using these. They're justifying their wrong behaviors in the claim that it's in defense when it's not. And this is a principled life, someone who understands these three things. So I've stayed long enough on that. For anyone paying attention, anyone still hanging around, go leave a comment. Ask a question. I'm going to get to all the comments and questions at the end. So let's keep moving forward. So we have to know that the truth is worth dying for. We have to be willing to live a principled life. And remember, this is we're talking about spirituality on this show. We do get into it. This episode is not necessarily about spirituality. It's more factual information and definitions of what slavery is, how slavery works, how slavery operates, right? So the truth and the search for meaning, the search for truth in our lives has to be worth dying for. Because the greatest people to ever live who changed history, they were willing to give up their entire life. It doesn't mean that you have to, everyone's going to be hung or whatever. But spiritually, those who stand up for the truth, stand up for morality, stand up for freedom, they reach opposition the quickest because of the world system that we're in. Excuse me. So this is why, and it doesn't mean that people are imperfect or people are perfect. And just because someone is searching for the truth, it doesn't mean that, oh, they're perfect. And, we don't need to talk about their issues or talk about their mistakes that they've made, in with morality or in these regards. But the greatest people stood for something that was bigger than just them. They stood for something that, transcended their temporary comfort. And this is what's worth dying for. And we have a world with people who are dying for the wrong reasons. They're dying for lies. Where did that quote come from? Is your biggest sin or your biggest mistake was destroying yourself for nothing? And I don't remember where that came from. Maybe someone could comment and let me know if there's anyone out there watching. But we have to understand what is worth dying for. The truth is worth dying for, and we have to get back on track instead of living an upside down world. So we talked about controlling demons. This is Eliphas Levi. There is nothing more to controlling demons than to do good and fear nothing. Period. If you're living upright, if you're doing your best to become a moral person, acknowledging your mistakes, you're controlling demons. You are ridding yourself. If you study psychology, if you get a principled life together, then the forces of demons or evil spirits, if you believe in that, they cannot possess someone who is doing good, who is right, operating in right behavior, has right beliefs, who is doing their best to look in the mirror as much as they can and say, am I on the right track? Am I doing good? And nobody's perfect, but there's nothing to fear as long as we're operating rightfully and doing good in this world. So we have to educate our children ourselves. Like I said, all of this comes from education. We have to educate each other. So educating your child should come from a deep spiritual place, and it should be in the highest regard for children's freedom and for them to, live for themselves and choose things for themselves. We live in a world where we pass on so many issues to our children, and we pass on the system that has been perpetuated to our children. So we're all responsible for educating our children. And it's not our right to send them to, nurturing a child and raising a child. There's more than just you in this world. And so other people are going to be talking, to your children, or if you have you send your kids to a school, like a public school, or a Montessori school or a homeschool, or you have some teacher or whatever it is, those people are going to be raising and educating your children too, and for better or worse. So your job is to do your best to educate your children on what right or wrong actually is. And it's, we don't steal from other people. Children learn this from a very young age. And we don't steal from other people. We don't lie. We don't harm other people's bodies. These are lessons that it takes years for our children to learn. So that's where the focus should be. Our focus shouldn't be having a child that reads at 3 years old. Our focus shouldn't be a child that does math at 3 years old. And not saying that those aren't cool, or whatever your belief is on when children should learn that stuff. But the point is, our children should have a moral upstanding. They should have the compass of morality in their hand from as soon as they can begin to learn that. A great quote from Frederick Douglass: "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." That sums up the education situation, right? But the reason our world is enslaved, and why we see this enslavement, is because we've exported our responsibility to build strong children to the system, which we know is building broken men, which you could say is just breaking men, breaking children. That's ultimately, if you look at my work that I've done on this podcast, or go check out Everything You Should Already Know, then your eyes will really start to open up. And go check out the One Great Work Network. This is an educator's dream, right? There are a lot of people who take... Will Keller is one of the people on the One Great Work Network. He has some amazing content, and he has done some amazing collaborations with people. And Will Keller is usually my producer here on the One Great Work Network. I'm not live right now because my schedule has been a little mismatched, and as we're changing it over to the Sunday morning live stream at 9:30. And head over to the One Great Work Network and check out Will Keller's page, because when it comes to education and parenting, he has some amazing stuff. And there's so many people on the network who are doing their best to educate people on the topic of slavery, and they're just doing great work, period. So yeah, we'll get back to the presentation, and we're going to be talking about the slavery freedom bottleneck. Because the more physically and mentally enslaved we become, the more our collective free will shrinks. So as the soul of humanity together becomes limited and limited and limited into our possibilities of physical freedom, so does the expression of what and who we are, of our soul. The politically correct movement has been going on for so long, and we used to be able to say all these crazy things, and people would have a more thick skin and be able to have some nuance in their life, and be able to listen to their crazy racist neighbor and just listen to what the hell they're saying, and be able to extract maybe a couple decent pieces of information outside of all the bigotry. But we can't just shelter ourselves. But our expression is being stifled by this bottleneck. And as our expression is getting stifled as a collective, there's a funneling, and pressure is building, because our soul and our consciousness is craving freedom. The more enslaved we become, the more our soul craves for freedom and wants to be unleashed. And this funnels humanity's purpose towards liberation. So why this is so important to talk about is because those who would wish to enslave mankind, they already know this law. They know that the pressure is building. And so when it comes out on the other side and all hell breaks loose and the chains are exploded and blown open, they want to maintain the grip of the mind on the individual as we transcend through this. They want to control it. So everyone is talking about terrorism and the false flags that are going to be coming. Well, it's not about the false flags. It's not about the worldwide 9/11 that's coming, the worldwide event that brings humanity to its knees. It's not about that moment. It's about what these people are getting on the other side of the chaos and on the other side of the destruction. What they're going to do is, we all know they're going to be staging the events, but what really should scare most people is what they don't have control over. And the chaos that is just going to happen and the destruction that is just going to happen based off of humanity's total lack of a moral compass. That's what really should scare people, is that there are events that are going to be taking place that are totally outside the government's control. And these are going to be people fighting for power, making a move for more power, losing power, like an animal backed into a cage. There's going to be people who have lost power. That's going to be the dangerous one. And the people who their lineage is getting destroyed, their lineage of enslavement is getting destroyed. So this bottlenecking effect, it shrinks free will and consciousness. So it drives us away from exploration and just towards freedom. So the way I distinguish these two is exploration is just fidget spinners and chia pets and what else? I don't know. Fun. Whatever fun is. Humanity is not heading towards fun. We've been distracting ourselves with fun for a long time. And now all of us together have the same purpose as moving towards freedom, moving towards liberation. So, true evolution aligns with order. I should have taken divine out. I should have edited that, but that's only to get rid of the spiritual thing. Some people don't like spiritual verbiage, but humanity has to choose the path that we're on. We can't just allow the path to be chosen, which is what we're doing. We're going down the Trump path. We're going down the communist governor of New York path, whatever his path is. But when all of these events begin to take place and chaos really starts to begin, if it ever does, they could just simulate it, They could just, but I think there are things that need to be reckoned with. We could get onto that on the other side. If anyone wants to have a conversation, leave a comment, ask a question, and we will go ahead and talk about it. So we have to choose these things consciously. So humanity is at a crossroads. And as we cross into this funnel, into this bottleneck, humanity is heading towards the path of surrender. So when the pinch happens and that bottleneck explodes, humanity will most likely succumb to the mind control and succumb to the terror, the just abject terror and horror that is coming. Or we can educate ourselves on slavery, educate ourselves on what is coming, because it's world slavery that's coming. It's not just government slavery. Everyone talks about the New World Order, but they don't understand what it's. The New World disorder is what it is. Slavery is disorder. It is chaos. Slavery is the path of chaos. It's the path of war, the path of confusion. That's what slavery is. And now government means mind control. Slavery is the path of government. Government is the path of slavery. It's the path of someone controlling your mind for you. So, what will humanity do? Are you going to take the torch and share this work, or share the work from the One Great Work Network? Are you going to make your own work? Are you going to speak out? Are you going to talk about slavery? Are you going to get rid of these beliefs? Or will you get sucked back in? Will you get sucked back in to the enslavement of the world, the sucked back into the mind control that is the belief in human authority and human slavery? Thank you everyone for watching Ending Slavery for Dummies. This has been a special presentation, and I'm very glad to give it. And I am glad to share all of this information with you. So, I'm going to check and see if there are any comments or questions. And we're going to get into the Rumble feed. Let's go back to Twitter or X. Let's see if there are any comments, notifications. All right. So we're going to find out if there are
Ramp
any.
has seen better days.
Whoa.
Time for Subdue Skatelight.
It's,
see here.
it's kind of
Let's see if
beyond
everyone
that.
can hear that.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
it's like the whole structure is like pretty.
Mute that. All right. So anyone who's left a comment, let's mute this. That was annoying. All right. All right. So anyone who's left a comment, let's see here. I don't see any comments on Twitch. Oh, it sounds like my audio is just a little too horrendous, guys. Okay, I don't see any comments in the chat. I didn't check Kick. We'll see. Alrighty. So anyone out there, I'm gonna keep going. Let's just check out mine. Alrighty. So I'm not logged into Kick right now. Anyway, let's check out. I have a couple more slides. Looks like Alex Jones tweeted an hour ago. Look at the censorship on X. We'll see. Too sensitive. Just a bunch of the talkers. So yeah, this guy, hey, I'm not saying he's the Antichrist like everyone believes. But most people would rather just cast out this guy and say, oh, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. Does he believe what everyone else believes about slavery? Yes, he believes that government is a necessary institution. He believes that humans should be enslaved, blah, blah, blah. But everyone should listen to what he says. Go listen to some interviews. This guy, I don't think we should have billionaires.
Have billionaires because frankly
Billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because frankly it is so much money in a moment of such inequality.
Oh, we should just get rid of them, right? We should just steal from them. This is what slavery is. It's the theft of other people's belongings. Now, are there billionaires that have probably robbed, cheat, lied, stealed, and murdered to get that? Most likely. You would have to, it would be up to people to prove, certain wrongdoings that a billionaire has done, it's etc. But the belief is still the legitimacy that that the government or the mob can take things from other people, which is a violation of rights. This guy, he's a government man, so that's of course he believes that. Gerald Salente. All right. I have a couple more slides we can get into, but just the whole thing. So let's get into the next slide. That's good to get into because this is essentially breaking down all of these people who don't go far enough. If these people educated themselves on what rights were, the rights that they had or didn't have, then we wouldn't be in this mess. So like I got into last stream, all of these people, they either don't know their rights, they don't know the laws, they don't know themselves, they either don't know that government is slavery and that slavery is bad, they haven't educated themselves on slavery, they're uneducated, they're ignorant. That's option one. Now option two is that they know that slavery is bad, but they choose to do it anyway. So they choose to believe in all of this stuff. They choose to believe in the slave system. They choose to believe that politics and the enforcement of arbitrary and subjective laws get to be passed on to other people. So that's what's wrong, is that everyone's listening to these people as if they have something important or good to say. All of these people are wrong on a fundamental level. Their principle, they talk about principles, but they don't know where principles come from. They don't know how to get to principles. They are unprincipled. So all of their conversation, it sounds great. It sounds like it's all mainstream, all current modern events. The Holy Warship is the current modern event. If you go and watch my other previous shows, you're going to find information that no one else is talking about. Go to the One Great Work Network. You're going to find information that no one is talking about. When was the last time this guy, do you think he will ever talk about natural law principles? Do you think this guy will ever talk about natural law principles? Will this guy ever talk about natural law principles? He's had a couple people on his network. I think Alex Jones is one of the closer on the spectrum because he understands some of this stuff. He said on a podcast before that, he understands that anarchy is the way to go, but he just thinks people are too dumb to get it. That was Alex Jones's statement, is that the people wouldn't go for it. Essentially, the people are too dumb to be educated on what anarchism is and what true free existence means. So all of these people, they think they're so smart, but they're not. it's like, I'm not going to tell anyone what to do or who to listen to, but if I'll put it this way, if the people you listen to don't talk about natural law, they don't talk about the occult, they don't talk about the principles, natural law principles, they don't talk about slavery, they don't just spend their time explaining what mind control is, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. It's not worth listening to people who don't know anything. Listen to people who know what they're talking about, who have spent time to understand what slavery is, what natural rights are, what natural law is, what the occult truly is. You know, people are giving Alex Jones crap about not knowing the seal of Solomon, or people were calling the Star of David, all of these different things. But however, it is the seal of Solomon. It's not just one thing. The occult is not one thing. It's not all evil. It's not all bad. And so we're going to, if my audio is sounding echoey, guys, I apologize. I'm going to get it fixed next week. And I'll probably see what I can do in post-editing to try to fix out some of the reverb or however it sounds. Might even turn it up a little bit. I don't know if that helps, but we'll see. So anyways, when we're talking about that bottleneck of freedom that we were getting to, the bottleneck started like this a long time ago. So there's the people, and as humanity progressed, we came up with all of these middlemen between the people who are the true deceivers. So the tip of the pyramid, if you go back and watch everything you should already know, go back and listen to episodes 1 through 7, then you're going to learn a lot about the hierarchy and the pyramid that is set up. And so these people, they operate practically in the invisible world. You don't see them in the way that you think you'd see them. These people they enslave and mind control by means of deception, by means of lies, by means of psychic deception and psychic or astral deception. And then you get these other layers of the people who do, these are other layers of slaves below them. And ultimately, these people are enslaved, like I said, because they believe the master and slave dichotomy, this original bloodline of the psychopathic priesthoods. You go back to Sumer, you go back to the Scorpion King of Egypt, and these original bloodlines were the original people who convinced others that they should be in charge and that their civilization is required for true freedom. And they set up all these people along the way, right? And so as it goes down into the new age and the new world order, they're getting rid of all this. This is when that pop bursts off of the bottleneck and humanity explodes and chaos gets let loose. You get the worldwide 9/11. They're talking about a nuke bomb. How many movies? I was looking into it. Since like 1960s, dozens and dozens and dozens of movies have all talked about a nuclear bomb going off in Manhattan, and or a nuke going off in New York. And let's just say there's a movie called Failsafe in '64 where the automation for dropping the nukes was triggered on accident. The technology got ahead of us, and the nukes were up in the air. One had to go to Moscow, and then the other one, in order to reciprocate, the president had to launch a nuke on New York. And so this is symbolic, whatever it is. And then you have Civil War, Leave the World Behind with the Obamas. And you have the dirty bombs going off right in Manhattan, right at the end scene. And then you have Batman, the Batman movie. He takes the Gotham, right? So we're gonna get into this just real quick, just so I can keep going, finish my thought. There's an Operation Gotham Shield was where they simulated a nuke going off in New York, and then you have in Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, there's a bomb getting ready to go off in Gotham, and Batman has to take the nuke and take it out to the ocean. And what are the Avengers? Iron Man has to take the bomb out of the city, and there are a lot of movies where they discuss bombs going off in New York. And then to put the cherry on top, in Donald Trump's book, The President, or the America We Deserve, he was discussing suitcase bombs and suitcase nukes and the threat that they posed on the world we live in, and how it wouldn't be too far-fetched to see someone with a suitcase nuke having it going off in Manhattan. And so what's going to be coming here soon? What's going to be coming to America? Is this predictive programming? Is this just humanity can't get out of this hellscape loop and we're stuck to repeat things and we're stuck to manifest our nightmares? Because that's what hell is. That's what slavery is. That's the ultimate sign of slavery, is just plummeting of morality, plummeting of everything till hell and nightmares manifest on earth. That's truly what we're in for. As long as humanity doesn't wake up and we don't share this work, you don't support the people even who are doing this work. There's a lot of people on the One Great Work Network who could use your help. I could use a lot of help, and if you like this show, please consider donating to me. You can find my link on my X. All of my profiles, you can find my tap link, and there's a way you can donate to me, and that's just between me and you. You don't have to tell anyone. If you're so surrounded by people who will come after you for sharing this, or if you're afraid to share it, and you're not comfortable sharing anything yet, or going to the One Great Work Network, consider making a donation and helping me out, because all of this work is for free. I should be spending some time with my family. We're all getting used to the 9:30 a.m. Sunday stream for the Holy Warship. But I'm gonna get off here after donating my time to you and to try to help other people see this stuff. I'm gonna go and clean up my property a little bit, get some weed work done, and I don't spray weed killer, so I have to hand remove like acres of weeds. And so that's fun. But I'm blessed to be here. I'm blessed to be doing this. Honestly, I do feel grateful that that I've recognized purpose, and I've seen my purpose in this world. And because there's a lot of people who don't have purpose, and they're lacking the understanding of where purpose comes from. And for anyone who has watch this and has witnessed a little purpose come into their lives and a little understanding, please consider giving back by donating, or just simply, if you're not in the means to donate. A lot of people aren't in the means to donate a couple dollars or whatever, then please just share the work. Send this podcast to some people who might find value in it as well. And so thank you. Yeah, thank you for anyone. I have received a donation. So that was a few months ago, and I was very grateful and surprised that someone actually did donate, because my work was so new. But yep, so I'm a normal person and I have a normal life, and I take the time away to be with my family to do this. And I'll stop belaboring that. So this is the old system, right? This is the old system. This is the old way where they need all of these people, but they're going to start ripping the Band-Aid off. Okay? They're going to be ripping the Band-Aid off. And now, this is going to be the new system. They're going to be getting rid of all of the unnecessary people in the whole scheme of things. And ladies and gentlemen, I know it seems a little harsh, and I was debating on whether or not I should leave We the Bugs in, but the original people who have maintained the power of mind control on this earth, they see us like as less than bugs. I don't even know how to explain it in a word that is even presentable, but they see us as less than bugs. They don't have any regard for nature. I mean, some of them do. Some of these people actually, but they think, okay, They think if they get rid of the bugs, then they're saving nature. That's how they believe it. That's what they believe. That if they get rid of these pests that are demolishing the trees, that are demolishing and spraying weeds on everything, or spraying weed killer on everything and bug killer on everything, because we the people buy it. We the people have bought into all this shit. We've bought into all of it. So they think if they get rid of us, they're doing a good thing for the earth. That's what climate change is. That's what the climate. What is it? That's the climate crisis. We are the carbon they want to reduce, right? They're going to replace all of the people they can. They're going to get it as automated as an automated farm, an automated kill farm, where people are just, kept in the dark and just not even raised, but just grown by a full automated process. The AI is running everything. AI will be running all of it. And I mean, there won't even be people to say no to. It'll be robots who don't understand. They don't feel. They don't do anything. So moving from this tip of the pyramid to the next tip of the pyramid, let's go to the structure. So this is the plan. And all of these people are fighting for control, right? They're all fighting for control. Now, these people are still at the tip of the pyramid because who knows what's going on in that regard. I want to get into a little more of the technology side of those. That would be fun. But this is the hierarchy. All the secret societies, all the college fraternities, they all went into these. This is the big boy cults, and then it starts off in Skull and Bones, or it starts off in Scroll and Key, where all of these hidden Yale, Stanford, whatever they are, University of Illinois, all of these groups, they get funneled into these private and government agencies. And this is where everything gets funneled to, right? And so we have Palantir and SpaceX. They are making the grid. They're making the robotics. They like to believe they're on the proper side, except they're allowing all of their tools and all of the creation, which all these technologies, they're based off of the technology that everyday people have been coming up with for thousands of years. If they don't create it themselves, they steal it from the people down here, and they steal it from each other, etc. We all know how that works. And so another thing that I was getting into last night is that once the automation is already here, the satellites are already ran by AI, and they're autonomous. That's what AI, true intelligence, autonomous intelligence is. True intelligence is the freedom to behave as you will. So the satellites and all of the technology being used to monitor everyone right now, don't think that there's someone telling it what to do. They have quantum censored satellites all above the sky. You have Elon Musk with SpaceX delivering government, which is mind control technology, government technology, mind control. Have to keep hitting that home. All of these top secret payloads, they can't even tell you what's up there, but there are satellites with quantum sensors doing their own thing. They're looking at hotspots. Oh, where's the activity going? What's likely to take place? And it can access text messages, access all the field of information. That's what's so profound, is that it's literally like a fake God. And government wants to be the fake God, and it is making the claim to be God. So it's creating a field, a prison planet around Earth, where they will be God. They have the power. They will be reading the minds of the people. They will be predicting their next behavior, their next thoughts. And humanity, it will go along with it because humanity is not taking control of its own mind. Humanity is not saying, I'm in charge of myself. I'm in charge of my mind. I am studying natural law. I am studying psychology. I am studying the occult. I am healing myself. I am looking in the mirror. And this can only be solved when humanity does all those things. This issue, this problem can only be solved when humanity does all those things. And these people they all believe that they're doing a good thing. They're saving the planet. They're fulfilling God's will. And, they're going to cleanse the earth, essentially, is how they believe it. They're going to, if you ever watch any apocalypse movie, look at all the movies. They're going to because it's biblical too. Just all the texts in the Bible too. There was one chosen person, and he gets to build the ark and save all of the creatures while God floods the earth. That's what these people believe in. You have Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist, and he's all got his own ways of interpreting that. But all these people, at the end of the day, they're preparing for an event where they get to save everything. And they get to save all the animals and save the trees and then come back and repopulate once humanity has learned its lesson and humanity has been wiped out and the consciousness of humanity has been degraded so much that the only thing that's left is to become a slave. So that's where we're going. Just spend a couple more seconds on this, is that something that people don't understand about artificial intelligence, and these people will try to convince us that artificial intelligence is going to be so real. The next phase in evolution is going to be mankind merging with AI and all of these things. Except we have to start understanding that AI, no matter how much it simulates human behavior, it is not human. It is not a human. It never will be human. It will never be sentient. Sentient is the ability to have subjective feelings. Now, the reason why that's so important is because subjective feelings, as a human experiences them, and as birds experience them, and as animals and reptiles experience feelings, are these things which are actually alive, these things that are actually tuned into consciousness, not synthetic consciousness provided by these folks, because the AI can sense that all it can. But guess what? Humans, consciousness, life, we get to have a physical feeling and interaction of life and of consciousness. We have dopamine, serotonin, cortisol, adrenaline, which are directly the interface of how we interact with consciousness and mind. A robot and a computer can never actually feel. It will simulate feeling. It might have sensors, but it doesn't experience pain or pleasure. It is a blank stare. That is why when they replace the pyramid with these things, it's going to be even deeper and worse than anyone could imagine, because these things don't have a reason. They don't have a feeling. They don't have an understanding of freedom. They don't have the feeling of what true love is, or what true fear even is. They don't even fear anything. So these people who are confused, they believe that humanity should be enslaved. They believe that all of the belief, that some people get to be wiped out and I get to choose who lives and dies, etc. That's something very crucial that humanity needs to remember, because as humans start to integrate themselves with the AI, the lines are going to be crossed between how human you are or you aren't. And you start to integrate a chip in your head then you're going to start losing your humanity, period. That's what will happen, because you will have your, you will be able to selfishly program how you want to feel at all points in time. And you will not be subject to the care for other people or the empathetic feeling of what slavery even is, because you're going to justify everything. You're going to intellectually say what is good and what is bad based off of intellect, not out of reason, not out of a moral or spiritual understanding of where laws come from, where morality comes from. So that has been my little extension of this episode. And this episode was Ending Slavery for Dummies. I'm very grateful for everyone to be tuning in. And please, for anyone out there, please consider donating and sharing my work. Yep. Thank you, everyone. And have a good rest of your Sunday. And I will see you here next week in the morning. Take care, everybody. Thank you.